The GangboX listeners. I'm at the GangboX Podcast, and I'm Governor Joe Lombardo from the great state of Nevada. Please take some time and have a listen.
Welcome to the GangboX Podcast. We got some heavy hitter guests back to back, huh?
Yeah, episode 10.
Episode 10.
Bringing the big guns now.
The big guns. We have the governor.
Worldwide.
#1 podcast in America.
Prestige.
The greatest podcast
Yeah, the greatest
in Las
podcast
Vegas.
ever. We have the governor of the
Rogan.
greatest state in the union, Mr. Joe Lombardo. How you feeling, Joe? Can I call you Joe?
Great. Yeah, you have a great podcast voice.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh,
He has a
sweet.
face for radio.
I like that.
He's doing good.
I like that.
So you guys giving Joe Rogan a run for his money?
I think so.
In my mind, we are.
Probably. My mom loves the podcast, so
Does she?
yeah.
What about your brother-in-law?
Not so much. He says you cuss too much.
I
Actually.
do cuss a fucking lot.
Feel free to curse on here if you want to.
Yeah. You don't have to. If you
You kind of do. I'm just kidding.
No.
So how you feeling coming off the special session? Obviously, that's a high stress, high anxiety, crazy time.
Yeah, it's actually I feel pretty good about it. I mean, as far as success, if you were to put a percentage on it, probably 80% successful in what we were trying to purposely achieve through the session. You know, we bring a proclamation forward that's designed by my office. Basically, the difference between the regular session and the special session was the governor designs the agenda, right? But with that being said, once the proclamation is presented, the legislature themselves they can modify, they can bring different bills together that are in proximity or the interpretation of the proclamation and the actual words in there, whether they can restrict or increase or modify anything within that agenda as long as it is approved legalese, and it's constitutionally available. It could look completely different at the end than when it was the original presentation. So, and there's some of the things we could probably talk about here that changed as a result. And one of the big things was this last minute movement by the legislature themselves to get a 2/3 supermajority to bring forward their own bill.
Right.
So that's the first time in history that's done in the state of Nevada.
Oh, shit.
That was to address the corporate ownership of housing.
Yeah.
And the limitation within that space and the viability of putting that in law into future projects that we're dealing in the housing space. So,
Yeah, that was crazy. I know I was asking Vince about that because that bill originally came up during the regular session. And I remember seeing Ira Hansen. Henson or Hansen?
Hansen.
Ira Hansen debating on the floor, and it was interesting because his comments sounded like he was all for the bill. He's like, this is good. Corporations shouldn't be buying up all our houses. I think he said, how can we compete with the likes of Elon Musk's, and our Nevadans need to buy their own houses. But then he goes, the executive branch has asked me to vote with the party, so I'm a no. And I was like, that is crazy. You know?
That's a bold statement.
And
it's unfortunate he made that kind of statement, but because that was not the case. The case is we were educating them on the issues associated with the bill. There's a particular piece of federal legislation. It's called the Dormant Commerce Clause, is where you can't restrict economy or commerce from individuals or corporations from one state to the other state. And that's basically what it would be in violation of. And so the conversation was hey, you probably shouldn't be supporting this bill because it's going to be vetoed because they're not willing to cooperate on the changing of the particular languages that we believe through my office were unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And he was well intended. He wanted to support something that helped Nevadans. And there's a perception that the corporations are coming in and buying thousands upon thousands of affordable housings and then outpricing those houses into the unaffordable market, right? And Nevada should have first bite of the apple, per se. And that's what we were trying to achieve, first bite of the apple in that legislation, but we couldn't get there during the time of the regular session. And, obviously I ended up vetoing the bill because I thought it was in violation of one law in the Constitution. And we had an agreement, I perceived an agreement to work out the nuances of that in future legislatures. And because it's an issue for the state of Nevada, being one of the highest medium home prices in the nation, we're pricing out our workforce, our labor force, and the ability to have that proverbial dream of owning your own home and seeing a quality of life for you and your family, right? So there has to be some answers to that paradigm. But the other issue on that is we did a significant amount of legislation addressing affordable housing outside of that subject matter. And that was incentivizing, down payment, incentivizing rent payments, allowing governments to provide assistance for first-time home buyers. We were changing the AMI, the qualifiers for government assistance in purchasing a home in the down payment space by raising it from 120 to 150. That would be inclusive of a whole different group of individuals, in particular our first responders and workforce and people of the trades, right? To get them assistance in that space so they can achieve that vision. And that passed. Yeah. So to the tune of, it was a requested funding of $250 million, and it was negotiated to $183 million. Now those incentives are taking place here in the next couple of weeks. That money is starting to hit the street here in the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot of movement in that affordable housing space that we can address here in short order and evaluate going forward in the next 12 months and see whether it's working or not.
Yeah.
And then, but when you try to throw another factor on top of it, this corporate purchasing and facing lawsuits that go along with it and everything, it's just muddy in the water. I think that's the best way I could describe it, muddy in the water. And it needed to be fully baked before we made a decision to go that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, not to cut you off,
I
apologize, but that's one of the things I think we kind of, you came into office and I took over as the building trades guy damn near at the same time. And I remember meeting with you once, and it was like at the very beginning of session in 23, and it was kind of like, damn. And then we met again second part of the second half of the session. And I remember we both kind of were like, what the fuck is this process really doing, man? It was a shock to both of us that how much perception versus like reality things happen, because things get framed out in Carson City to be one thing. And it's like, there's this bill to cure cancer, but then there's also like 100 other things in there that like fucking will just ruin everything. Yeah, and then
it's called the poison pill, and that's one of the unfortunate pieces of every constitution in every state is different. The nuances and the ability and authority of the executive branch and the legislative branch and like let's use Virginia as an example. Glenn Youngkin, he has executive order just like every other governor in the union, but his has the power of an executive order. Mine only has power when it's in times of emergency. Mm-hmm. So COVID is an example, right, where you have to change policy, change law as a result of an emergency. Outside of that, it only has an authority internal to government process. Mm. So my Department of Transportation, whatever it may be, I can put an executive order that says you can't work from home, right? You have to come in the office to work. And but his is all encompassing. It's just like a piece of legislation passed by the legislature. He goes, man, no, this is the law that I want to pass as your governor. Mm. And the other piece on that is when you talk about poison pills, quite often we talk, it's presented that I've broken the record in vetoes. Yeah. In the two sessions. That's not a record that I'm proud of, right? And I've said it publicly. I think it's bad government, right? It was more of a test of my resolve versus good policy. And So use Glenn Youngkin in Virginia again. He has a line item veto power as a governor. I do not have that in the state of Nevada. And what that means is 90% of your bill is fantastic. You got one poison pill over here in the 10%. I can't veto that.
Yeah.
They said, well, let's just veto that and we'll pass the rest of the bill. You don't have that in the state of Nevada.
But what state did you say has that?
Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, and it's different in every state.
Sure.
And there hasn't been an appetite by the legislature to change that authority. You know, it's a power struggle, right?
Yeah.
The legislature wants to have the ultimate authority when it comes to making laws, and executive branch wants the authority to be able to modify it.
Sure. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
No.
Well, that's the reason why you have a podcast, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Information.
It's for us to learn.
And so while we're talking about Virginia and the East Coast, and we got Donald Trump in the White House.
Yeah.
And, you know, his folks, you know, with trying to take out these renewable energy jobs and stuff, which has really affected Nevada. I mean, we're blessed here with our minerals and our sun and natural resources that are given to us here. Are you doing anything, or what's your thoughts on the renewable energy projects getting shut down here?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking it. And yeah, we're doing something, and we've actually had some movement in that space in the last 2 weeks. So he comes out with an executive order. Trump says renewable energy will not be subsidized by the federal government any longer, in particular to solar and wind, right? We don't utilize wind energy here in the state of Nevada because this is an education I didn't know about. But you have to have a sustained, not too much and not too little, of wind of approximately 20 miles per hour over a sustained period of time. We don't have that anywhere, you know, similar to like the ocean breezes, right? So we've never explored wind here because it wouldn't be a return on investment on the cost. And part of his executive order was the cost of production, the cost of maintenance, the cost of manufacturing, the cost of everything else that goes along with receiving the power and distributing the power. There was no return on investment in wind. So that was part of his executive order. Okay. The second part was solar. We were encumbered by the majority of all the equipment, the panels, the transformers, and everything else that goes along with solar. The equipment that's required was manufactured in China, the majority of it. And they had the ability to manipulate the electronics, the technology in it, so they can receive, you know, different types of information that would be cumbersome to Homeland Security or whatever it may be. He says, and the amount of solar energy provided in totality was strictly inefficient as compared to the threat of Homeland Security, right? So that's not the case in Nevada. So Nevada utilizes solar energy more than any other state in the union. One is because we have a lot of sun, right? We have a lot of open space, a lot of unusable open space, and we use it as a form of energy. We don't have any hydrology. We don't have rivers and stuff that you could, you know, harness the power of energy in all the other forms. So we do have geothermal, which we are the number one state in the union in geothermal, right? And all our power plants are run off natural gas. That's a fallacy. I mean, you guys probably experienced this when we were talking about, you know, the retrofitting of gas lines and everything else, and, you know, the pulling back of the utilization of natural gas. But people don't realize, well, that's how they make power, through natural gas. That's the most efficient way to make power. And that's what, in the state of Nevada, we only have one coal-fired plant left that's producing power, and that is due to be decommissioned in a certain period of time. And this is all going into your carbon issue and environmental, what you have put in place in your Constitution on timelines associated with build out of green energy, you know, what's the conversion, the solar versus traditional, all the nuances that were put in there. And it becomes very cumbersome to have that executive order out of the Trump administration in the state of Nevada.
Yeah.
So we, in our timeline that we put into the Constitution, in the conversion of green energy, the expansion of green energy, I'm sure one of your members will research it, but I don't know the exact date, 2030 to 2035,
somewhere there.
we had to have 35% solar power, right? Well, we're in the 20% currently, right? And we have to rely on the expansion of solar. One is for our power needs, and two is to meet the guidelines associated with green energy within the state of Nevada. So I went back to see Trump for numerous items, but this one in particular I met with him on because I had previously met with Doug Burgum, who is the Secretary of Interior, about this issue and didn't get an answer. Okay, and I explained to him why we have to have a different mindset in the state of Nevada. And subsequently, I had an audience with Donald Trump, and I
Did
say,
you
hey,
have to buy any of his meme coins to get that audience?
no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little funny story about that. But and so I'm sitting there we're talking about, reelect. We're talking about Nevada. We're talking about people he knows in Nevada, and he's asking how they're doing. And then I said, well, I got a couple items I need to address, reference Nevada. And one in particular was your executive order in the prohibition of solar energy. And so I walked him through it. And I said, you've been in Nevada, you got a hotel in Nevada, right? And we have a lot of brown fields. In other words, fields that aren't going to be developed. One is proximity to underground and utilities, and the other one is it just doesn't make economic sense to develop. And it may or may not be encumbered by the BLM. And the issue he had brought forward was the Chinese threat, and two was there was an agricultural threat, taking up agricultural land in other states and grazing land in other states, besides the Chinese issue. And so I walked him through it, and he goes, okay, sounds good. I'm glad you brought it up. I'll call Berger and tell him it's allowable in Nevada. That's as simple as it was. Has it happened yet? Well, it was 2 weeks ago. So, and I actually have a meeting next week with Bergeron reference to Colorado River water to go through the federal, not interference, but injection into those negotiations, and I'll confirm with him at that time where we're at with the solar fields.
No, that's
because there's 4 fields currently that are in process of being built. So the original ask was to let those at least continue and be finished, and then actually pull back on the executive order for the state of Nevada. So we're working at it from 2 directions.
Nice.
I appreciate it, and I'm sure the brothers appreciate it. It's because, again, and I know, Daniel, I don't know if you got any questions you want to ask right now, but I will say thank you for that, because you and I have had plenty of conversations, and it's not, for me, it's not just about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. It's about jobs. It's about work. I care about infrastructure, growth, economic development in the state, specifically Southern Nevada. And so to hear that you're, in your own way, the way I view it is fighting for jobs. Daniel will probably call me a kiss ass or something.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
He's really fucking laying it on thick now.
But I appreciate that, because you've even signed legislation, like you said, with the gas replacement pipes and stuff. And Daniel didn't know this, but the way that I run legislation for the building trades is I go sit down and I meet with you first. And our members don't even know how the fuck the process works. And it's okay. But I always meet with you first, because the end goal is
they don't need to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they voted you in, right?
Yeah.
But
so that they can, the people that want to do the research, and you get those guys who say, no, this is the way it is. But I always
saw
meet
something
with
on
the governor.
social media.
Yeah. I like to meet with you first to make sure that it's something before I go in there and get my curb stomped and head kicked in and all the bad things that happened to me in the legislature. I want to make sure that it's going to get signed before I run through the gauntlet. And then I try to meet with the governor throughout the session to give him updates on where we are and things, and not just for building trades legislation, but individual local unions legislation. But thank you, because whether it was intended or not, I hope you believe that I'm always going to run legislation that isn't just pro-union, but is pro-Nevada and is good for the workforce and economic development and growth of the state of Nevada. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Vince. And I think it's important. That's an important piece of education, I believe, for your members, though, is, traditionally there's a perception when it comes to labor and unions that that unions are strictly Democratic, right? And the Republicans are anti-union, right? And I think the consensus in that narrative is we are jobs driven, both D and R, jobs driven, and quality jobs, not just jobs, but quality jobs. And that's what the unions provide, quality jobs, right? So there's room for conversation on both sides of that, right? And I'm not shying away from it. You and I had this conversation. Yeah. And, an example being is, there's argument when we I'm sure we're going to talk about the film bill, but when we were talking about that, there was a complaint on the Republican side. Well, these PLAs and it's just all union work and everything. No, that's not the case.
Yeah, Ira Hansen said that from the floor, and he lied multiple times.
Well, okay. But the reality is to just go all the way back to Allegiant. Go to the current athletic stadium, right? Yeah. And then the future Brightline build out. There's only so many union jobs available. Right? Mm-hmm. And right, wrong, or indifferent, people decide not to be in a union. They want to go at it from a different direction. That's their prerogative, right? But there's always space for those positions. There's non-union positions on the A's project or the Allegiant project, whatever it may be, because it's a supply and demand. It's a number. It's a math problem. So we're not trying to prevent anybody from doing anything.
Yeah. And obviously me and Vince are pretty close. He's my buddy, right? Yeah. And we talk politics a lot. And it's like, he thinks I hate you, right?
No, I don't think that.
Because historically, you're right. Like I've been a union construction worker since I was 18 years old. Every single hour I've ever worked my entire adult life has been under a collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
My father was a union glazer. So collectively bargained wages put shoes on my feet when I was a kid, and collectively bargained wages put shoes on my kids' feet. And historically, it definitely seems like the Republican Party has been against labor, right? I think it's changing.
No, it's definitely changing because I didn't mean to cut you off, Daniel, but go back to the core of it, the granular aspect of this. What are you trying to achieve?
The American dream.
Right. Your quality of life, a good job that enables you to do that. And your vision, the union provided for you in that aspect.
100%, yeah.
So the Republicans and the Democrats are looking for jobs. They're that's the economy. And what is the role of government in jobs? I don't make jobs. I don't create jobs other than the people that work for the state of Nevada. But we create opportunity for jobs.
Yes.
Okay? And that's the key that people fail to sometimes understand. Yeah. And the Republicans are creating opportunity and the Democrats are creating opportunity, right? And so you can't paint anybody in one particular box anymore.
And so that's what I've learned, right? So and what I've learned is when the government has the opportunity to help create the American dream and jobs, I don't try to write project labor agreements in legislation.
Right.
I was taught that by my predecessor. He didn't take me by the hand and show me that. That's just what people told me. This is how you get it done. And I seen that creates more problems.
Right.
So what I do is when people look for the government to help bring jobs legislatively, I go meet with them and say, hey, I could help. Here's where we could help you get this done, right? You get me plus my lobbying corps plus all the representation of the unions to help you push this job. And we get a PLA. And if I can get the ink dried before we get into session, there's no need to write it into the legislation. And it's a private company who's choosing to do this.
Right.
And then you get statements by people like the old guard of the Republican Party, like an Ira Hansen, who makes these outlandish statements. And just so you know, an educational piece here, the way that I craft project labor agreements is for the worker, not the contractor. And I don't, for one, the state of Nevada, it's illegal for any worker to have to be a part of a union. We don't break the law with our PLAs, so that's false. Two, you don't have to be a union signatory contractor to work on a project that has a project labor agreement. Creech Air Force Base right now is a prime example of that. The Water Authority, prime example of that. So there is
Raider Stadium.
There
was a non-union painting contractor on that job.
We're not trying to keep the contractors to do anything. We just want to make sure that the workforce is local and dispatched out of a union
Yeah.
hall.
Well, I
That
mean,
is
I think that's the overall agreement, right?
Yeah, that's what
you
it is.
You want the workforce to be local.
Yeah.
You want the workforce to be local, but sometimes they don't have either the expertise or the technology. You know, like the crane services. Like I went out. So Richard Dillman is a good friend of mine. You know, Dealco Crane,
Yep.
Union House, right? And so I'm out at the athletics project, and I'm looking at this massive crane up in the sky, and so I talked to the GC out there, and I said, "Hey, who's your crane provider?" And it was so and so and so and so, and I go, "How come it's not local? How come it's not?" He goes, "No, Dealco's over here, but they don't have the technology. Dealco didn't have the technology for this one particular crane, right? And it only came out of Missouri or whatever it may be. So you have those nuances, but the majority of it should be emphasis on homegrown labor."
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And I think that's what bothered me so much, about Ira in his statements, is because he was making statements like, "Oh, the PLA, you have to be union," and he said a line that, who's the ABC guy that I can't stand either?
Warren Hardy.
Warren Hardy. He said something that Warren Hardy says all the time, which is a lie. "I represent 90% of the non-union workers who choose to be non-union," and they don't. And you just made a statement like there's only so many union jobs. Well, there's only so many union jobs because that's the work that we win, right? When we win more work, those 90% that are choosing will choose to jump over immediately. The problem is they want to be union, but we have to create the market for them. We have to create the demand, and it's hard for our contractors to win jobs when these other contractors are undercutting our contractors by off the backs of the workers, right? And so it puts us in this circle where, well, look, 90% of the guys are non-union. Well, they don't want to be union, and we want them. But we can't get the work with our contractors because these low-road contractors who cheat and steal all the time, I catch them all the time, are winning the jobs and then taking it out on the workforce. And so, I know he says we don't write PLAs into legislation. Like I want everything to be a PLA. Everything should be a PLA because it's guaranteeing that the workforce can make the money that they need to buy a house. We talk about home affordability.
Well, I mean, but that's two different issues, right? You got prevailing wage and you have PLAs.
Correct.
Right? So, and I'm an advocate for prevailing wage.
Yeah.
I mean, to the T. I think it should be across the board. You know,
no restrictions.
Well,
I mean, you had your housing bill, right? I know there was some language or some discussion or an amendment. There was time where there was discussion on taking the prevailing wage out of that. And I know that made a lot of union people upset because, that prevailing wage, when government dollars are creating jobs, I think they should be creating good paying jobs.
Yeah, but there's a nuance to that. You're right.
Yeah.
There's a nuance to it. One is your infield versus your outfield. So traditionally, correct me if I'm wrong, the trades don't get into residential building.
That's unfortunately correct.
He tried to get it out. That's
He's gonna
correct.
run for office.
That's correct. And so if we were to force a PLA or a unionization into the residential space, remember the key word, affordable housing.
Right.
Does that drive up the cost per door to where it's no longer affordable housing? Can we prevent that by not having the PLA associated with that piece, knowing that you don't traditionally participate in that particular function? That's what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The curb and gutter and the roadway and the fencing and the perimeters and underground and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
The workforce, and unfortunately, and I hear you, and I understand that right. But the workforce that builds homes is the most taken advantage workers in the state. They are treated horribly. And then, we try to go, I know
a lot of times they're transitional workers, correct? Is that correct?
Like temporary, you mean?
Yeah.
That hasn't been in the
a lot of
crafts
folks
that I
coming
do.
from out of state.
Yeah, but the
Because those projects come and go.
Mm-hmm. They come and go. I mean, my unions are really focusing on that market, and we're trying to think outside the box and develop agreements to try to capture that market. And we are going to jump in. I just had a meeting today about it. We are going to jump in and try to get that because those are the workers that need us the most.
You know what? The more the merrier.
Yeah.
The reason being is because we don't have enough. We don't have enough in that space. And that's why when we were talking about reciprocal licensing, from out-of-state contractors in the rural environment,
Right.
not in Washoe and Carson and Douglas and Clark, is because the contractors won't go there.
Yeah.
We can't get it built because they won't go there because they don't have a place to live, affordable housing for a workforce, and a lot of those aspects, and the proximity and the distance from their main residence.
Right. And
there's nuances in that, and that's why it has to be open for discussion. It can't
Right.
be a either or, right?
Yeah.
An absolute yes or no. And that's where I think it's changed over the years with the Republican Democratic process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know when you announced your campaign, you had labor standing behind you, the laborers. Actually.
872.
872.
Shout out Tommy White.
They were behind you in full force. And, we had Tommy on the podcast and we talked to him a little bit about that. And I guess my question would be, what makes you a better candidate, the best candidate for labor, like for particularly construction labor, right? Our guys, like what makes you the best candidate over say Aaron Ford?
Well, because of history, one, of support. Two, you can't label me as a Republican and non-partner.
Right.
Okay. And three is communication, man. There ain't a time that Vince has texted me, Tommy's texted me, whoever it may be, Frank has texted me, that I don't return their call. Yeah. All right. And have a conversation about it. Hey, we have a problem with this. Okay, well, let's talk about it.
That's
all
a
right?
matter of fact. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
So that's why.
Okay, good.
So I'm not doing anything to limit labor.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not doing anything. Okay. And one of the things I got a shot across the bow when I did decide to run for the first time was in expanding. I firmly believe you have to expand the economy in order for a community to continue to grow. If you don't, it'll eventually dry up and die, right? And so you have people on the other side, on the extremes, the left, or say the conservationists and things like that. They'll say, no, we don't need any more building. We just want to be happy with what we currently have, and that's why we live here. Well, it's going to be a ghost town before you know it, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, in the state of Nevada, 62% of our total economy is based off the gaming space. And what is occurring across the United States? The proliferation of gaming, right? So if we don't expand on the economy, which means jobs, okay, we're gonna dry up and blow away, and that's the basic concept of it. And you have to have a candidate that has that vision for it to be success into the future. And I believe I have that vision.
Yeah, and obviously you endorsed the movie studios, right? You put it on the proclamation. That was an endorsement enough that you wanted that to go. What do you think when, it's weird we talk about it because it seemed so odd to see these far left progressives and these far right Republicans teaming together to kick the shit out of the people in the middle who are trying to make a deal, right? Because that's what it essentially was. And that's always been my argument. I made that argument under the A's stadium when I testified in support of that bill. I said, look, we have these far left progressive groups that have never cut a deal with a billionaire in their lives. And now all of a sudden they care about billionaires. We're the union guys. Yeah, I don't want the billionaires to have everything either. We actually fight them. We're the ones in the trenches. We are at the bargaining table. We are in the courts. We are at arbitration. We are the ones fighting against them. But we know when to cut a deal. We cut the best deals there are. Look at our benefits. Look at our wages compared to the non-union sector. Like, we cut those deals because we know we have to. And so now we have these people in the middle at the legislature, and we got the shit kicked out of us by the extremes who teamed up together. You have Chuck Muth with... with what's her face, who's LaRue Hatch on the same team, and I'm like,
fucking wild. We
live in a crazy world when the moderates that are trying to get things done and pushed forward are losing to the extremes.
I think I seen LaRue Hatch with the Chuck Muth's Truth T-shirt. Bro. Yeah, I think I seen that. I could be wrong.
I bet. It's just crazy. What do you think went wrong? Do you think there's any lessons we learned or anything we could have done differently to try to get that across the finish line?
Well, yeah, there were some lessons. I just want to couch this the right way. So yeah, I wasn't aware of that partnership until late in the process, and then I became aware of what they were trying to achieve. But I think that what it was is they were together on the lack of desire to have the studios. Okay, but I think the reasons why were completely different.
Okay.
I think that was the case. You know, if you look at the Republican side, the majority of that was transferable tax credits, right? They don't like that scheme. They think it's a giveaway to the billionaires nowadays. But they don't like that scheme. And on the other side, on the left, the extreme was, well, could we better served producing tax credits for a different functionality? And LaRue Hatch and her team, the NSCA, the Nevada State Education Association, they were against the stadium, everything else, because they think all that money should be injected into education.
Right.
Okay. And for the economy to work and for you to move forward, there's got to be a balance across the board.
Right.
You can't have all your eggs in one basket. We're learning that with the economy here in the state of Nevada. And so I think they had different reasons for pairing up, but they had a central belief that the studios were bad.
Yeah.
Okay, for the future of Nevada. And the people in the middle had the opposite view, right? And what I've said on this, you know, the argument with transferable tax credits, you know, the biggest thing in education for Republicans is school choice.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Victor Jokes was smashing you on Twitter about that.
Yeah, he's you know, it's easy to opine from a keyboard,
Right.
Right, and it's and somebody that's never done anything in their life and everything else. You know,
I can't stand the guy.
I could give you 20 examples of why you shouldn't listen to Victor Jakes. Okay, but
I call him Jokes.
I always say, you know, the man in the ring. You know, the proverbial man in the ring speech. If you're going to bitch and complain, why don't you get in the ring and do something about it, right? And throw some punches. But you know, that's the lifestyle he chose.
That's my governor.
Yeah. Right. So, but so back to, so the transfer, so they like school choice, right?
Right, school choice.
And so Nevada has this program, it's called Opportunity Scholarships, and it's based off transferable tax credits. All right. So this is the most important thing for Victor Jakes, right? Opportunity scholarships, you need to leverage in this legislation. School choice, increase, you know, 50 million, 100 million in opportunity scholarships. Wait a minute. How is those scholarships funded? Oh, transferable tax credits. Okay, but it's okay over here, but not over here, right? And so it's and this whole thing boiled down to the lack of understanding. Something from nothing is nothing. Okay. Without building those studios, Howard Hughes doesn't develop the surrounding development, right? The $1.4 billion of additional development. And so they say, well, we're losing the states being encumbered in their general fund on a 15-year basis by the lack of tax revenue because of the studios, right? That's encumbered. You can't budget for any other programs to a tune of $120 million a year for 15 years, right? That's if they achieve all the production value that they were required to do. But outside of that, okay, so you're not going to get the tax revenue here, but you're going to get the tax revenue from the employees that are coming here and buying houses and going to restaurants and blah, blah, blah. All it goes. So you're going to get that, right? Okay. But you're going to get all the consolidated tax revenue. You know, your sales tax, your property tax, your CapEx equipment tax, and your modified business tax off the $1.4 billion of Howard Hughes development that is not going to get built without the studios. Okay?
Right.
But now you have nothing.
Yeah.
You're having nothing now.
Yeah.
You have zero. You have a brown, empty field.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get people past that. And you know, and they said that this would be the worst thing that ever happened to you, Governor. You know, you won't get reelected if you continue to push this because of the transferable tax credit. This is going to go against your base. And I can't make decisions based off that. I have to make decisions what is better for the state of Nevada.
Yeah.
Right?
I always
it.
I always find that shit odd when they start talking about your brand and your base. And it's like, so you mean to tell me that my base support system and supporters are going to go with the other guy? If I do, like, Get the fuck out of here.
Well,
Like,
that's
stop.
Well, here's another piece. You're exactly right, Vince, but there's another piece to this, okay? If you noticed, all the rural, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, were against this, right? But what they fail to quite often understand, some of them do, but a majority of them don't, is the tide rises all ships, right? And how is, right now in the current situation, no fault to anybody, there has been some proliferation of the economy in northern Nevada via the trick and the other functionalities. But 62% of gaming supports the state budget.
Right.
It supports the totality of money that goes out into Oahe in Humboldt County and builds a school for them.
Right.
That came from Clark County.
Yep.
That didn't come from the tax base in
Preaching to the choir,
in
guys.
Humboldt.
Yeah.
That didn't come from the tax base in Humboldt, right? And I'm a governor for the whole state, right? But it's important for people to realize if it don't happen here, it ain't going to happen here.
Fucking happen. Yep.
Okay? We built a school out in White Pine, and that was provided by Clark County taxpayer money.
So that brings me to my next question, and it's really important I get a direct answer, not a politician answer. You recently were at a football game, correct?
Yeah, UNLV, UNR.
Yeah. Who, and I need an answer. Who were you rooting for to win that game?
UNLV.
Hey,
There you go.
there we go.
I told
we
President
go.
Sandoval as much. I had red socks on.
Okay. All right. I like that's a direct answer. I thought you were going to say I rooted for Nevada.
No, I rooted for UNLV. I've made it very clear
Yeah.
who I support in the college athletics department.
Okay, good.
I love. I'm the governor of Nevada. I support the entire system of higher education. We were talking about sports.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the campaign's coming. One of the things that your whoever your opponent ends up being is going to talk about, which I'd like you to address here, is the unemployment rate.
Right.
It's been high. It's we're always kind of at the top or near the top. What do you think is the reason that we've had such high unemployment during your time as governor, and what do you think it would take to get it fixed?
Well, let's not say just during my time as governor. We've been up at the top, 10 percentile for several decades, and here's the reason why. Okay, so here's a little dilemma in this, and this may blow your mind, it may not, so depending on the month. Currently this month the number is going to come out. We've gone down almost a total point, and so we're going to be a lot better situated this coming month than the previous months. So I'm looking forward to those numbers coming out. But so depending on the month, it's either us or Hawaii or California. All right, or at the highest unemployment numbers. I think the last month it was 5.7%. But we are also the highest number of available jobs in the nation.
Okay.
Wrap your head around that.
Like job openings, open jobs.
Open available jobs.
Okay.
And why is that? Wrap your head around that. Why is that?
As a union,
You guys
guy,
are in the union.
I want to see him answer this.
This is an easy answer for you.
For me,
Yeah.
I mean,
They're not quality jobs.
Yes, they're not quality jobs. That's
They're not
okay.
quality. They're not jobs
don't
where
pay
you can go
quality.
buy a house. They're not jobs where you can,
They're jobs.
McDonald's.
They're jobs that aren't prevailing wage or under a PLA. You're saying. So if we
well,
create
no,
more of those jobs,
Well, no, what I'm saying
this
is
guy.
the unions are quality jobs,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
provide a good wage. There's a lot of, it's mostly in the service industry where people, the dollar per hour is just not high enough for them to say, hey, what's the return on investment for me having to pay for childcare versus staying home?
Right.
As compared to my dollar per hour. And that's where we're unfortunately caught in a conundrum in the state of Nevada. And that's why I said, day one, when I decided to run for governor, we got to change our economic expansion. We got to change who we're trying to attract. We got to change the paradigm of solely being relied on the casino industry, the gaming industry, in order to be expansive in the state of Nevada. And so what have I done in reference to that? One is I've been very proactive in the go-ed space, providing incentives. People says, well, why do you always have to, why do you got to provide incentives? We just need to put jobs here. Every state in the union is providing incentives. Okay, and that's how they're recruiting big companies.
Right.
We're not talking about your traditional small business environment. We're talking about your 100+ employer businesses,
industries
that provide living wages, so people can fulfill that ultimate dream of a good life, right? And so we've been concentrating on that, and so as a result. Since I've taken office, we have brought 150,000 jobs into the state of Nevada, 16,000 construction jobs since I've taken office, and our job numbers have increased 4% year over year. So it's going forward. It's not all negative.
Right.
There's a perception of negativity because of the unemployment number.
Right.
But in reality, you have to look at it as a total concept and as a total machine that is moving the state forward. And I am comfortable saying we are moving the state forward.
We need higher paying jobs.
We need, dude. You and I talk about that often, man. Like a skilled and trained, qualified workforce is what we're missing. And I don't want to get on my fucking soapbox about what America.
Well, when we talk about education, right?
Yeah.
And education is the key to all of that.
Yes.
From ground one, from kindergarten to grade 12. And we have a very poor record in the state of Nevada of providing career-ready or college-ready students upon graduation. And we are changing that by the month. And if you saw the recent numbers that come out of the Clark County School District, which has been traditionally a drag on the total education of the state of Nevada because of the size and the breadth of it and the teacher vacancies and everything that else goes along with it, because of what we did the last two sessions as far as curriculum changes, early education, infusion of monetary benefit for wraparound services, all that stuff, the expansion of charter schools, school choice, we have changed, I think it's 11 or 14%, don't quote me on that, of one-star schools becoming 2- and 3-star schools. Mm-hmm. So we have less and less of the schools that aren't qualifying as success models. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal, 14% in a matter of 2 years. So
we got about probably 10 minutes left. But I'll ask you, what's your...
Jesus.
48 minutes, dude. It goes fast. It goes super quick. It's wild. What is your greatest accomplishment as governor? And then what are you hoping to, if you get reelected, or however you want to frame it out, to accomplish in your next run at office?
Well, when I first decided to run for office, there was 4 key issues that I ran for, the proverbial platform. 1 was expansion of the economy. 2 was education. 3 was improvement upon healthcare and crime, law and order, right? And we took bites of that apple in the first legislative session. And I don't have to describe the landscape for you, but I was fighting against a majority, almost the precipice of a supermajority legislature, pushing against my policies, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent. It was because I had an R next to my name. Okay, so we were biting. We took bites of that apple, and we were successful to a very large percentage in that. And so when I went into the next session, was I going to do anything different? No. I think those things were core. Those 4 values were core of what we needed to accomplish for the state in its entirety to continue to move forward, at the level of the governor's office. Individual legislators could have their own projects, pet peeve, things like that. But in the second session, it was inclusive of affordable housing. So we're up to 5 pieces of the platform. And so here we come now today, we're a year away from an election, and my decision is to run again. And why is my decision to run again is because we have a lot of unfinished businesses on those 5 platforms. And
did your housing bill?
I think it's housing. I think it's a sound platform for the success of the state.
I don't remember. Did you sign the housing bill?
Uh-huh.
Did you? Your housing bill? Yeah.
Yeah.
With prevailing wage, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, we're
Well,
good.
we'll see how many get built. I'm a fan of prevailing wage, so don't try to frame that out that I'm.
Well, did I say you weren't a fan of prevailing wage? The governor said you're a fan of prevailing wage.
I am.
And are you a fan of PLAs? Oh,
It depends on the project. Tell you the truth.
Rapid fire.
rapid fire. So I did this with the other. So it was only 3 of them. So it was prevailing wage. You said good. PLAs. You kind of right.
But I haven't shied away from that. The PLA.
No.
I've said it all along. I said it depends on the project. It depends on discussions with us.
Yeah.
And going through it. I just didn't want a carte blanche, Joe Biden type policy coming across the board.
Yeah.
So-
Joe, he was the most pro-union president in the history of the country.
Yeah.
Right to work.
Do I support it?
Would you support eliminating it?
No.
You want to keep it?
Yeah.
I mean, with states that don't have right to work, they have higher paying jobs. And the reason our unemployment is so high is we have all these jobs and they're not good paying jobs. So wouldn't the elimination of right to work allow us to then have better paying jobs, thus reducing our unemployment rate?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think there's a lot of moving parts in that discussion, and it wouldn't be prudent to answer it completely in the GangboX Podcast.
We got 3 minutes left.
And I feel like you're cheating for rapid fire.
Yeah,
Just for the record.
let's talk. Why don't you throw a subject out that requires 8 hours of discussion?
Yeah. Fair enough.
You're supposed to ask like, "What's your favorite color?" or
No.
something.
Those were the 3 I asked the other candidate. Same thing, but he just answered them yes. So
Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
So he answered right to work as he would abolish it.
He wants to get rid of it in his first session.
He should bring that up publicly.
Well, he said it on here. We're gonna drop it.
Yeah.
When Sisolak got elected, we talked about it because he had obviously he was a Democrat and he had a Democratic House and Democratic Assembly, and I know I was fairly new and I kept saying right now's the time. Let's get rid of right to work. Let's get rid of right to work. And people were shush me, kind of like, oh, don't talk about that right now. I was like, what are you talking about? That's what we need to do. And he told me we'll get rid of it my first session of the second term. That's when we'll do it. And you ruined that because he never got a second term.
Yeah, I would be remiss saying that's not the panacea that you're describing. I think there's a lot of more nuances to that, and it's
Michigan did it.
It's always a.
you don't live in
For the
Michigan.
record,
Yeah, I know.
so I just happen to have up top 5 ranked states for unemployment. DC's 1, California's 2, Nevada 3, Michigan's 4, Oregon's 5.
For
Hawaii's not in there.
No. I think that's changed since, especially since they're doing the dry dock at Pearl Harbor. We actually have a lot of people from Las Vegas.
Traditionally, Hawaii's
Yeah,
been.
I believe it.
Yeah.
No, they have a lot of construction projects going on right now.
I mean, I look at it as an incubator here to Nevada, right? What is their economy based on? Tourism, right? So,
Yeah. Why do you think tourism's down?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. One is world politics. 2 is supply chains, tariffs. That could be part of it, and I think just the economy is trying to find its way. I think the encumbrance of China in the world market has finally come to bear, and we're finally starting to see how their conglomeration or their oligarchy is actually taking effect across the world. So. I think once we figure out better manufacturing processes domestically, or even with our friendly nation states, we'll be better off in the long run. So, I hopefully it's a pendulum effect currently, and we're at the height of the pendulum, and we're going to be going the other way here shortly. So. Here's an important piece, and just give me some deference here, is you can't paint it as a Biden-Trump issue, okay? Because presidential administrations go across several decades. They don't happen the exact time that they're in office,
right.
Okay? And, it changes over time, and I think one of the things, the idea behind Trump and tariffs is to domesticate jobs
Yeah.
here in the United States, manufacturing in the United States. But you can't build a factory in 10 months, right? And it takes a while to do that. And so what do you do in lieu of domesticating your workforce is you do a reciprocal tariffs to whatever you deem to be appropriate in order to balance those scales. Now, some of the shotgun effort is hard to understand.
Yeah.
But I think we're, the proverbial question in politics: are you better off now than when the person in the office took office? And my answer is yes. So,
Last 2 minutes left. Something popped up on somebody sent me an article. Democrats bet on Trump's slump to take back Nevada. National Democrats see incumbent Joe Lombardo as the top governor to unseat this midterm election. What are your thoughts? We'll close out with that if that's okay with Daniel.
Yeah, exactly. And one is you have to put a lot of some of those polls you can't trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll just put it that way. And one in particular that they're utilizing there is a very bad pollster. I'm very comfortable in the numbers that my team are providing. But the reality is my opponent is he uses the term the Lombardo-Trump economy, okay? Mm. But one thing I pride myself is I'm all things Nevada, right? And what happens in the Beltway in the federal space is completely different than what is domesticated in the state of Nevada. And I pride myself of acting on my own 2 feet, not Donald Trump's 2 feet. Mm. And I mean, he's a Republican. I support Republicans, and no candidate is 100%. Nobody is. Nobody's 100%. And you have to take the good with the bad and the indifference of it. But I believe he's better for America, and I believe I'm better for the state of Nevada.
Fair enough.
Right on.
Like it.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for
Governor.
coming.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you.